Hi, welcome to the Seeking Heaven channel. I'm your host, Tamara Caulder Richardson. And today we have back Curtis Childs. Now, Curtis has the YouTube channel called Off the Left Eye, which goes over the teachings of Emanuel Swedenborg's work. And today we're here to talk about the topics of heaven and hell. What is reality? What is the purpose of these? And if we have time, we'll get into what do married couples meet each other in heaven? So welcome back, Curtis.
It's great to be back. I love coming here. So thanks for, I guess the first one must have gone good because here we are again.
Exactly. Well, I love Swedenborg's work, and he really does need to be known more. So thank you for educating my viewers on who he is. And if you don't know exactly, watch the first one because we go into a little bit who he was, which he was a lot more than a Christian mystic, because honestly, his work is really about life and spirituality, which bypasses all religions. So please check him out. So let's talk about Swedenborg's work. I know he has a very popular book, Heaven and Hell. And I mentioned earlier, pre-show, that some people, I get people writing, they're very concerned about this hellish place, and it could be, things they heard in their religious teachings. But I want to hear what Swedenborg has to say about heaven and hell, if you could cover some of that.
Happy to. So Swedenborg is interesting because he absolutely talks about things that you hear about in Christianity. Like he talks about heaven and hell, but his definition of those things is often, while there's some similarities, it can be quite different, the reality that he says he experienced of what's really out there. So heaven and hell, first thing I would say to people that are worried about going to hell is nobody that doesn't want to go to hell goes to hell. You only go to hell if you love hell. So heaven and hell are not just defined by being places spiritually, because spiritually speaking, there are no places apart from states of mind. So here, gravity is sort of what determines what objects are where. Like, why am I down on the ground here instead of floating away from planet Earth? Because of gravity. In the spiritual world, love does that. What you love is what moves you to where you are. So heaven is a state of loving what is useful or helpful or good for other people. So when you love doing constructive, good things for people and enjoy the fact that they are feeling joy and that good things are happening for them, that is the essence of heaven. And hell is the opposite of that. Hell is when we enjoy harming or exploiting or doing something negative to somebody else. One time, Swedenborg describes it. He says, when the pleasure of evil is felt as good, that is hell. So that, at its basic form, that's what heaven and hell are. And because after you die and you're not in a physical body that's in a physical world that goes by physical laws, you're in your spirit that's in the spiritual world that goes by spiritual laws. In the spiritual world, as I said, love is like gravity. So everybody who loves doing what is good and loves the idea that someone else can be happy and that we can do what's right and honest and just and fair, that love that they have pulls them together.
Yes.
And that pulling together is, and you just think about any place that's full of people who love the fact that want you to be happy and don't think that they're superior to you, and they want you to do nice things for you. What would you call that place? That sounds like heaven to me. And if you're in it, and likewise, if you're in a place where everybody thinks that they are the center of the universe and doesn't mind harming you and will do anything to you as long as it gets something good for them, and it's full of people like that sounds like hell. So that essentially is what heaven and hell are. There is yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Let me just tell my take on that, and I'm in 100% agreement. Is that I asked one time, it was about 3 years ago, Jesus, and I asked him, "What about this heaven and hell? Does hell really exist? What does this mean? Can you help me understand?" I really didn't expect an answer. So one night I went to sleep and he started talking to me and telling me, and I woke up and I wrote it all down. And he said this. He said that hell was, and yeah, this is a whole big thing that I have on this, but he said hell was a place that people was like-minded that created this place where they like to continue the sin that they did because they enjoy it, whether it's hurting people or whatever. He said, my love is always offered to them to remove themselves from this. But what I was gathering is that people that want to hurt others and want to play these downtown games, like kill other people. He named a whole bunch of stuff. They were unpleasant. They were unpleasant. And he said they go with other people like them. He said, but they don't have to do that, but they take it as pleasure. And he said, that cannot be near my Father, which is divine. And so he said it was a state of mind. And then he also began to say they were sick in their minds. A lot of these people were sick in their minds, but that if they accepted him, that he would cleanse them and help them to understand. Basically, they would get help on the other side, and they would get angelic counseling, and they would, they could get help at whatever point. Help was never denied, but that they were sick in their minds. So they go to a place they created with others like them. They've agreed to play these downtown games. So he did not say that it was a place of punishment, but that some people put themselves there by pleasure, and some people put themselves there by they feel really guilty, and they create this place. I have examples I can think of, like a cave. They could create a cave and put themselves in a cave for punishment. He said it's not necessary. My love is abundant for redemption to anyone.
That I loved hearing that, and I think it's exactly right. I'm glad you said the thing about punishment. There's no such thing as God punishing anyone for the sake of, I'm just gonna, you did this, so I'm gonna hurt you in retaliation. And that was very much the Christian doctrine in Swedenborg's day, and that survives even to the day in certain sects. The idea that there's hell, and the point of hell is if you lived in a way that God doesn't like, God is there just like poking you with a stick to hurt you, just saying that I'm getting revenge on you, essentially. Swedenborg is very clear that God is love, and he even says in his book True Christianity, number 56, because he numbered all these different sections, it's impossible for God to even look at us with a frown. That to do such would be against his nature, and what is against his nature is against his essence. That's not what love does. God doesn't just sometimes feel love. God is love. God is love. The good love that any of us feel, that is coming from God, because that's God's nature. Hell and heaven are actually the same thing, in that in each, God is giving the people there the happiest possible life they can have based on what they love. But when you're in heaven and you love what is good and you love doing good things for people, you can have this amazingly happy life. When you're in hell and you've centered the pleasure of your life around these horrific things that people want to do to each other, you can't really be happy doing that. But hell is arranged so that you will have the least miserable life you can possibly have, given that that's what you love and you're holding on to. And absolutely, God is never turning his back on anyone. Swedenborg talks about angels in heaven, and to him, angel is just the word he uses for those of us who get into this state that is a heavenly state. So it's kind of like, here you're a child, and then you're an adolescent, and then you're an adult, and then you get old. An angel is kind of like the next phase. You can become an angel if you really let God's love and wisdom come through you. So you have angels who are really plugged into God, and it could be your grandma or who's passed, but she's become an angel now. He says that any angel would gladly trade places with anyone in hell if it meant that person could get out of hell. But the person in hell doesn't want to, because they've become intoxicated by the pleasure of whatever evil it is. You have people who, they want to hurt you because they like it. Those kinds of things. That's what makes hell. And he has a chapter in his book, Heaven and Hell. It says, it's not so hard to lead a heaven-bound life as people think it is. It's not that, because if I were hearing that for the first time, I might say, well, yeah, there's all kinds of times when I've been mean to people, and kind of because I wanted to. Am I not going to be able to escape that? But he says that all you have to do is periodically, he even says like once a month or so, do like once a year, examine yourself, look in and say, where do I have things that are hellish in me, or that not that someone else told you, but that you believe, oh, this is not good. Like, this is not how I'd want others to treat me. Look in there, pick something that you feel like, I don't really want to be like that. And once or twice a month, work to resist that when it comes up. That's enough. If you're putting in some effort and trying to move toward what's good, and sort of falling in love with what heaven is rather than what hell is, that's plenty. It's not that this is some like big SAT where you have to get everything perfect to move there. It's not so hard to leave heaven bound life as people think it is.
Well, I think it's about a correction, like you said, that you look at your own. Only all we can do is correct ourselves. Is to look at our own behaviors and what we want more of and what we dislike and remove it. But I think that if we do become the love that we're supposed to be, as Jesus tells me, be the love you were created to be. If we were truly that, then we would automatically just pick the right things.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the more that you are in love, like if you think about who's the person that you just love the most, just think of someone that you don't have a lot of ego hangups around. Just when you see them, you're like, oh, I love them. You don't have any desire to, oh, I'm going to steal from them, or I'm going to say something to cut them down. You just don't want to. It's just inherent in the love that you have there. And I think that to getting into that angelic state that I described is just really more and more about allowing the Lord. Swedenborg uses the term the Lord, and when he says the Lord, he says that he means Jesus, and to him Jesus is God. So he's the God that you can meet. So he say, when the Lord can remove the negative things that we have in us, then it's just the Lord's love coming through you, and you just habitually, naturally act in loving ways and feel loving things. And he said that's how human nature was meant to be. That's how originally people were. There's been this sort of long-term decline where people have chosen self-centeredness and materialism over the generations. So we now kind of start with an uphill climb, or we'll start with these. You can see it in kids. Kids are so cute, but they can be terribly mean to each other. And
Yeah.
you're at times you're like, they're playing together so nice. And then my wife is a preschool teacher, so she's having to keep kids from like stealing from each other and pushing each other over. We have this just inherited tendencies to kind of enjoy evil. Kids can just like, they're mean. They're not even really thinking about what they're doing, but they're mean because it's kind of fun to make fun of somebody. That's what we're kind of what when Jesus is talking about trying to save you, he's like, let me get you out of that stuff and free up more to get into this, my yoke is easy and my burden is light, where it's not even a struggle anymore. Swedenborg calls it becoming a heavenly person, where you want to do what's right because it's the thing that's most pleasurable to you anyway, and that's when you've really hit this heaven state.
Well, so that definitely is directions where not to go to hell. Where to go to hell is wanting to do bad things and thinking these thoughts. The other direction is wanting to help yourself and humanity, trying to do the right thing, and being more of a pure mindset. What about supernatural, divine interaction, like godly or godly Jesus? I say team guide because I do believe that we have angelic assistance. We have our loved ones. I get often in my readings that they're praying for us on the other side, like our relatives. They're praying for
Yeah,
us here, which is beautiful. I think that's just beautiful. They're
that is.
interceding for us. Why wouldn't people here pray and love and admire God? And why wouldn't those over there do the same? It just makes sense to me. But how does Swedenborg talk about the intervention that we get from the heavenly other side?
Sure. Well, a good way to be able to tell if you have angels with you is, are you alive? If you are, you have angels with you, because he says that if we were separated from angels, we would cease to exist. So there is this intimate connection of our consciousness to angels. He says that they're always with us, sort of two almost guardian angels. He talks about there being two primary faculties in a human being, what he calls the will and then the understanding. So it's like the heart and the mind. And I think either I said earlier that God is divine love and divine wisdom. And so we have this part of us that's our mind that's receptive to wisdom, and the part of us that's our heart that's receptive to love. So we actually have an angel with linked to us in each part. So you have an angel that's kind of your buddy that's with your mind and influencing your mind in a good way, and one that's influencing your heart in a good way. And that's the baseline. There are all kinds of angelic communities that we can be in the middle of that are connected to those. Swedenborg has a quote where he says, "Angels from the Lord are with us every moment and every moment of a moment." So all the good and true feelings that come through, those are being delivered to you by heaven. That there's a constant. You today you have had many angelic interactions in everything good that's come through you. Swedenborg talks about a heavenly community that each of us belong to, and really that we're finding throughout the course of our life, because as we change who we are, our spirit changes locations in the spiritual world. Because we were talking before about heaven is you get pulled there by your love. So you're a different person now than when you were a kid, and you get older and you start to do these spiritual growth and you change. Your spirit is kind of on a journey to different
Yeah.
places. So the spiritual company you keep changes, and eventually you're led to, if you are willing, everything is freedom. So if you're willing to be led into heaven, even God can't force you to go into heaven if you don't want it. But if you're willing to be led into heaven, and all that means is willing to be led into the pleasures that make up heaven, which is the joy of doing everything that's good, you will eventually end up in this angelic community. And he says that when you get there, it feels like you're back, you're home, because there is such a resonance with people. Even if there, it could well be, and it sounds like from what you're saying that there are people we have known in our life in that community, ancestors. But also if there's someone who is there that you had never met before, still once you die and go there, you feel
You
like
know
you've known
them.
them. You feel like you've
Mhm.
known them forever, because there's such an affinity between your spirits, because you have
Yes.
this total compatibility of what you love. So within that, and even within that community, there is a particular house that is meant for you. And houses, everything that appears around you spiritually, according to Swedenborg, is a reflection of what's within you. So the landscape, the houses, even the animals and things that are around particular communities of angels is a reflection of what's in their hearts and minds. So your house is like the perfect image of your mind, and your house continues to grow and change, because to eternity you continue to develop and grow in love and wisdom. So there's a place for you, and there's a particular place in the whole of heaven that's meant right for you. And Swedenborg says that the heart of divine providence, the very core purpose of divine providence, is to try to lead you to this home where you're going to have this amazing set of relationships and kinship with your heavenly team. And yeah, angels, he says that they're the people who are there in heaven. They have no greater joy than leading people into heaven. So I absolutely think you've got a team that's pulling for you, and that's to them, that's like whatever here is the most valuable, like trading stocks or something, or what there it's like, oh, can we get people into heaven? That is the thing that gets us up in the morning. That is what we really think is important in life. And actually, that the joy of heaven is founded on the joy of usefulness, or of doing things that are good. And the highest use is to introduce people into this heavenly state. So that's what makes angels the happiest. So you got people who are wanting you to go to heaven, and there's nothing more exciting to them than the idea of you getting there. And so that's their passion.
And also, to add to that is that when I was, one of the things I did with my training at Evidential Mediumship, for a week, we just brought through evidence what they were doing in heaven. That was the most spiritually enlightening thing I've ever seen. And there was one man that came through it was an uncle to his niece, and he was talking about fingernails. And she said, "Oh, he would always look at my nails. He was a skin doctor, and said that he would look at my nails to see the healthiness." And he was studying tectonic plates, drinking. It wasn't alcohol, but he said it just made him comfortable to put like a scotch on the table, but he wasn't really drinking it. It was kind of
Hmm.
weird. People sometimes have favorite, they don't really, but he says it just makes him feel cozy and he had a fire. But he
Yeah.
was studying books on tectonic plates, and she said he always loved geography. He always loved that. But he worked so much and took care of my dad, he never had time. And then they talk about, I get a lot of the people that are older and one crosses over, and I've gotten a lot of this where the husband says, well, I have a place and it's a lake house. And he describes it. And they'll go, that's exactly like our lake house. So they make a replica
Yeah.
of a place that they know that the person would feel like home, and they would do that. And I've even had husbands come through. I don't know why. I'm not saying wives can't come through, but the husbands come through talking about the sheets and the linens on the bed and what kind of sheets the wife liked.
Yeah.
And said, I know you like them white, and you like them, and you like them really clean, and how they like the bed made up, and they're preparing this place for their loved ones, and it's an actual place all the way down to the squeaky screen door
Hmm.
and the pond in the front, so they can sit with the dogs. They talk about the animals there, and they said, we're going to go hunting. And he said we're just looking at stuff. That's how they hunt there. They just go around and look at stuff. There's
That
no
one.
guns.
Yeah.
There's no guns. They just walk around in the woods and look at things. So but I've been given many, many years of evidence of things they do in heaven, how we can have it is not this meat body, not be disrespectful. We need these things. But it's not this, a flesh and blood, but it's a different type of body. But we have a body that usually looks better than this.
Yeah. Right. I know mine's already starting to fall apart. Like, um, but that's such a good point because in Swedenborg's day, there was a lot of philosophers and highly educated people who were of the opinion that the soul, if it existed at all, materialism was really on the rise, but the soul, if it existed at all, was just ethereal, sort of a puff of air, and the spiritual world was just kind of on the outskirts of thought. And Swedenborg was adamant in saying, no, the spiritual world is more concrete and real than this one is here. And your real body is your spirit's body that's there. And exactly that the angels, they have houses and they have communities and they even have systems of
Yeah.
government. It's more real than here.
When I've had a few near death experiences, and when I was over there, it had more heightened senses than here. I could feel the grass under my feet. It was the softest grass. The colors were more colors. They Everything was alive. The tree, the flowers, every petal, everything followed Jesus. And I was thinking, does he know that? They're all following him, thinking he must be important here. And so, but they all followed him, and it was as though he knew my thoughts before I said anything. But you had the sensation of breathing really good. Okay. So it's not like it was a void of sensation. You know how we have sensation? It would be strange to be void of sensation, right? Because we're used to it as
Yeah.
humans. And they have the sensation of eating food, but it's not really like our food. I think they do that just because it feels comfortable.
Yeah.
But they don't really need to eat anything, but they sometimes do that. They talk about making like different things like brownies or pumpkin pie, but they don't really eat. So that's kind of, I'm human, so that's hard for me to understand that. But it's almost like a game. They like mock it up that I see, but it does have, I guess we like things,
Yeah.
like sewing, I don't know, or whatever. They do things there, but and they're usually simple things, but there is it's why wouldn't it what is the Lord's Prayer, like heaven and earth? Well, why wouldn't they be alike?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it look like here?
And that was another main thing Swedenborg was trying to communicate is that you're still you. Like you take your mind with you. And you use there saying, oh, if even people even take some habits and idiosyncrasies, you that's what this life is important because we take our life and who we are with us.
Except for the bad stuff, because that doesn't you can't be in that high vibrational divine pure state and bring along alcoholism. You know what I mean? That part,
Right.
or cussing, if you're a cusser or whatever, that part that's human drops off,
Right.
that I understand it. And
Yep.
only the higher, better self of you, the sweet, that pure spirit of who that person really is, they go back to. And that it's a, I hear all the time, it's such a freedom for people because they're not burdened by their body or by compulsions or any of that.
Yeah.
All that is dropped off, and how wonderful that is.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love the idea of being free of all kinds of things. Swedenborg talked about that process happening in a place that he called the world of spirits. So according to him, there's the spiritual world, which is his name for everything spiritual. But then the world of spirits, he says, this is not heaven or hell. It's the place in the middle where you first go. And it's kind of like a centrifuge. Not You don't really get spun around, but the idea of a centrifuge like whips around these little things, and the different weights of things separate out. So if like the core of what your heart is you do want to love what's good, it like through processes that you go through, it pushes all the negative stuff, like you're saying, out and down, so that you end up just having that. Or if you decide I want to center my life around what's evil and false, actually the same process needs to happen, because if you have good things still clinging to you, that causes you distress, because you kind of have the part of you wants to love evil with. So for either way you choose, you kind of get freed from the other side of it, which leads to you being able to have the happiest life you can have there.
So this area that they've shown me is, I don't know why I call it this. I have no idea where this word came from,
Sure.
but it's the Murk, and I call it MURK, and it's
Uh-huh.
the place. It's not purgatory, because that I have I wasn't raised with this concept. However, I have seen that before, where someone said, "Yeah, it's not good, it's not bad," but they kind of get their attitude that final finished off, so they're ready to head off to heaven.
Yeah. Right.
Need little like homeroom class, need a little talking to, and then
Yeah.
they're good. They're good. But this is more of just it's not really a waiting room, but it's just something beforehand. So they're not in the higher level areas yet. They're just spirit, and they're with others, and it's just I don't really, the best I can say, it's like a waiting area.
Yeah.
And I don't really know, what is he, can you talk more of this? What is the purpose of this? I mean, why do we have to wait? I mean, do we need a number? I mean,
Yeah. Right. Is it capacity issues? They don't have enough
and
shift
I mean,
workers.
I mean, why do we have to go there? I mean, I want a VIP white limousine, and I want my angels to get out. I want to go
Yeah.
straight into heaven. I want to totally hug Jesus. I want to have a big disco party, because we know Donna Summer, and we know all the Bee Gees. They're almost there.
Yeah.
I want to have celebrating with all the people that I love.
It's like if you're scuba diving, you can't go up too quick. So if you're
Oh.
scuba diving, I have
Mm.
never, but I know that if you go down past, I think it's 100 feet, you get nitrogen that builds up in your bloodstream. And so if you start to go up too fast, you get the bends, because the gases expand. It causes this horrible thing in you. Systems, even spiritual systems, need time to acclimate and adjust. Now, there are some people who do go right up, like you're talking about, but that's because they did just about all the work they need to do while they're on Earth. So the closer we are to being fully committed to love, or fully committed to the opposite of love, the more quickly we can go right to where we want to go. So Swedenborg does talk about certain people who, throughout the course of their life, had really gotten clarity and done a lot of that spiritual work here. They do go right away, and the length of time you spend in that waiting room, the whole time you're there, you're not waiting, you're processing,
Acclimating.
you're acclimating, and you're doing it by, for example, if like how do you get freed from, if you have some false idea that's harming you, how do you get freed from that? Well, you have to sometimes go live it out. Swedenborg talked about people who have to get your illusions around it shattered. He talked about people who had these false ideas of what heaven was. There was this groups of people who, one of them thought that heaven was just constant worshiping. Like that's all you're doing is you're in church. Other people thought heaven is just constant. These were ideas that were around in Swedenborg's day. It's just constant feasting with famous people and people from the Bible, and that's all that heaven was. Some people thought it was just socializing or just relaxing and having nothing to do. And so the angels said, okay, well, you can all go ahead and try it. And so people would go off and and a few days later, they were like, let us out of here. Like, this is terrible. We don't, that shattered their illusion of what they thought heaven was. So then they were open to learn what it really was. And that heaven consists of all those things, but it's all centered around living a useful life. So you go and you have some kind of almost occupation where you go and make the world better. And that other stuff is recreation. So it's, to human beings, sometimes the only way they can get freed from things, negative tendencies they have, the things you were talking about that are shed, they have to be shed through experience. And that's what's going on in that zone, in the murk.
I love what thanks for explaining that. And I love what you said about heaven. It's because I see them, like I've seen, like my husband's parents are both over there, but his dad, they're on a farm. And he used to play in a band, I guess, bluegrass country music. So they're on this farm that I see, and they're younger and they're with animals. And I think they're living the life they kind of wanted to in the beginning. They talked about, but they weren't able to do it. And they're tending to all these animals, and because they love animals. And but they're also there's things they do there, but then there's projects that our spirit loved ones that have here. And sometimes we're the projects. we're the projects.
Yeah.
They're like, and it's funny because my grandmother's that way to me, and I'll say, okay, grandmother, bring in, everybody that I need for this project. And so they'll bring in, and she coordinates the angels. She's like, very busy. And so I think you can have, there's different jobs. There's one guy who worked a lot. So his job there is learning to relax. And, he's learning, that's what he's doing now, so we'll get more into this. I want to go more into the world of spirits. What is the difference really with humanity and the world of spirits? And what can we look forward to? And how can we look forward to bringing heaven here now? So we'll talk more about that in the next segment. Don't miss it. Thank you so much, Curtis.
Thanks for having me.
Please subscribe, like, and make comments, and support this channel by becoming a member. Thank you for your continued support.